Hi, and welcome to the Producer's Circle. I'm your host, Gabe Castro. And on today's episode, we have invited two phenomenal producers of events and organizations that we see throughout our city of Philadelphia that cover cinematography, film, production, the people, our community events. And they have done some phenomenal work of kind of converting the content that they've created to fit in this virtual space in our current remote, virtually accessible world that we live in. And so I am super happy to invite them here to talk on some of the struggles and some of the amazing achievements that they've accomplished online in this new world. And so let's meet them.
Hi. Hey. Hey.
Yes, thank you both so much for joining me in our virtual studio. Very interesting, right? It's, again, that new world of everything is online. Yeah. In our past two episodes were about our producers who were creating their TV shows online. But we've also seen, a lot of popping up of these events or conferences or conventions that would have been going on that now we can attend online. And it's this new kind of virtual landscape of programming that we can kind of partake in, which has its pros and cons, which we'll get into. But I did want to introduce you both to our listeners and to our viewers. And so we have Sarah Mueller. Welcome. Thank you. Sarah is a cinephile, a lifelong learner, and very proud 18-year community-rooted resident of Philadelphia. Since achieving a BFA in film production from the University of the Arts in 2006, she has been deeply immersed in her art and social change practice of raising up the next generation of storytellers through digital media instruction and producing people-centered cinema. Mueller is the director and founder of CineSPEAK, which is what we're going to talk about today. It is a Philadelphia-based, justice-centered, independent cinema organization where they work to bring together communities over a thought-provoking film and important conversation. And intrinsic to her work is the notion that having the ability and access to speak for oneself and or one's community to experience and create deep and diverse depictions of one's various identities in media is a basic human right, which is right alongside with what PHLAFF is, which is why it's an awesome, addition to what we create here. And you fit right in. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And I also have Maranjeli Mejia Rabell, and she is a Puerto Rican-born, Philadelphia-based cultural producer, strategic thinker, and community development practitioner whose work is centered on cross-sector partnerships in arts and culture as a tool for social change and community self-actualization. As co-founder and creative partner of Afro Taino and director of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, which is what I'm going to talk to you about, she curates, designs, and executes arts and culture programming, special events, and projects for multicultural audiences in public and private arenas. Lots of things. We're doing lots of things, which is awesome, right? Like, you're very busy women. And, we're kind of like translating all the things that we do or have done over these years to kind of fit into this virtual landscape. But I did want to hear from each of you about both CineSPEAK and the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival on what that is, what people get from participating, and I guess kind of like what it usually looks like if we were to be, not in our homes, being safe, and kind of operating out in our beautiful city. So I'll start with Sarah. Could you tell us about CineSPEAK?
Yeah, so we currently we're independent cinema based out of West Philadelphia. Been around since the fall of 2013, doing mobile pop-up programming in a variety of weird and very common spaces, from batting cages to church sanctuaries and brick and mortar places that are familiar to like the film societies, the Roxy, and international houses, gorgeous cinema, rest in peace. And so, it was really founded as a way to kind of connect the dots throughout the year between these incredible festivals, of which Maranjeli leads, one of those amazing festivals we have here in the city. And so really just to help bring more independent work, particularly by those whose voices are less centered or marginalized in Hollywood Hollywood and even in the independent mainstream world, but to make sure those stories make it to Philly. That's what we've been about, and we've had to shift to the virtual landscape in recent months, which has been a challenge and a joy. And we're looking to open a brick and mortar space, the first phase of that, in 2021 in West Philadelphia.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's something to look forward to. One of many things to look forward to in the new year. Hopefully, November will show us even more things to look forward to in 2021. Maggie, can you tell us about the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, how it's looked over the years, and what people gain from that experience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So PHLAFF emerged in 2012, and the idea was to create the space for Latino and Latino American filmmakers to share their work. And the organization has been committed from its inception to work with established filmmakers and emerging filmmakers. And as we have continued, we're getting ready for our 10th anniversary celebration, June 3rd through the 6th, 2021. We have continued to expand on that concept. And the idea at the core is really to build community. The mission of the festival is really to share experiences and create spaces that support cross-cultural dialogue. And we have learned as we continue to work with community that we definitely want to be open to different disciplines and create space for creatives to come in and not only build with each other, but build with audiences. So, at the core of the experience, we want to bring ese calorcito Latino, no? It's about being amongst family and supporting each other, and really just open to what the expressions are, what the emerging work is, what the emerging voices are bringing to the table, and how that continues to change the landscape. So we always see ourselves as a work in progress, because we always want to be open to what audiences and filmmakers want to bring to the table. So it's centered on collaboration with those segments that are part of our ecosystem.
Yeah, and it seems like there's just a natural kind of, adapting that happens with events just in general, but specifically these as well, because it's like we're going to be where we can, we're going to set up shop, because it is the content that is the important part of it, right? It's getting people together in the same room to talk about these things and to experience, the art and the culture together as a community. And so if the community happens to be at home, then we have to change and support them at home and find a way to bring them together virtually. So it's awesome that you both still have these organizations still up and running. We've had people collaborating and getting involved and still out there, because I feel like especially now it's something that we need. We all just need that little break and that little enjoyment, but also like education, edutainment is what I call it. Well, I did want to, and either one of you can answer this, was, what was like one of the challenges that you kind of faced with kind of converting to something that's remote in this like virtual world that you like never would have imagined would have been the case?
I think that for us, talking about the current situation, so we began this journey with this pandemic in the spring, and our festival was already scheduled and was in production for the first weekend in June. So initially we were looking at what was happening around us, and a lot of people were postponing events from May to early June or to mid-June. So we were like, let's just stay parked, keep on moving, and one day at a time, and see what's happening. As we got to the end of April, we realized that we needed to move to a virtual setting. And for us, what was really critical is to provide something to the audience and to the filmmakers. For filmmakers, it was the support of getting their content out. A lot of them had scheduled premieres at other festivals that had been canceled. A lot of people were pulling back and saying, we're not going to do events this year. We understand the need for the content to really get out to community and for the filmmakers to continue their cycles with their films. So we wanted to provide that support for them. And then when it came to audiences, we knew the appetite was there to be in community, and also understanding that there was a lot of fatigue, that people were, zooming away every day, that people were working from home. So definitely, as part of our internal conversation, our planning, our considerations were, how do we provide something that is easy and breezy for the audience, that people can come in and very simply just log in and enjoy. Nothing else. We don't want to give you 3 links. We don't want to make it too cumbersome. And also in terms of the content that we were presenting and how to balance the journey. I always like to think about the festival weekend. The one thing that comes to mind that I will compare it to is like a DJ set. You're in a space from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and you have an audience, and you have, an up, and people go and other people come in and people want to take a break. They're dancing, but they need a break to go get it. Like that type of thing. You want to make sure that the person that comes to us, that starts with us on opening night and watches the whole festival, right? There is a flow to the experience. So by the time the last day comes, you're like, okay, I see what you did there. There's a flow there's a rhythm here that it's at play. So, those were all the things that we wanted to think about. And obviously when it came to filmmaker offerings, also creating that space within the week of the festival. So filmmakers that were not in a position to now hang out after screenings or go to an after party or go to a workshop before, how did we create those spaces? And what we opted to do was to do a full week of programming. So we started our filmmaker offerings and moved everything virtually, and it worked out very well. We're very pleased with the outcome and understand that there's a lot to be learned. And the last thing that I will say is that we knew that we were jumping in. This pivoting thing was about, okay, we're going to be one of the first ones to do it. So there was that conscious decision of, when you do it first, there's a lot to be learned and it's a great opportunity, but we'll also are biting the bullet early on. So the process and the virtual experiences will continue to evolve, and we need to be okay with that and just swimming. As Nemo will say, just keep swimming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree that, when you're kind of the first one in there too, I feel like people are a little bit more like accepting and understanding of like the limitations, and kind of like are, gonna bear with you as well with the, any technical difficulties or challenges, because we're all just like, we get it. We're all here trying to make it work. Yeah, that's awesome. Sarah, what about you and CineSPEAK?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit in mid-March, we were, it threw us for a loop, because we were actually slated to start the renovation process of a basement space here in West Philadelphia that would be the first phase of our brick and mortar home, where we would be able to have weekly programming, and that was to launch in June. So it was very interesting to kind of have those plans we've been talking about for like a year, both with ourselves and with our, the venue host partner, to have that kind of like, be halted immediately. We couldn't be in person. And, like so many film organizations, dealing with the loss that we all experience from not being able to do what we love, which is to be with other people, strangers, new and old friends, in person, experiencing good art and having great conversations. And so, in our feelings a little bit in March, we decided to use an opportunity to do what we saw a lot of our more established independent cinema, art house cinema friends doing, which was to partner with filmmakers and different independent distributors who were also trying to survive, get their stories out there, and who were kind of grappling with this maybe loss of festivals. South by Southwest was canceled in March, which is huge for a lot of people. Sundance was able to happen. South by is the next kind of big indie one in the States. And so with that canceling, a lot of people were just kind of frantic. And so we realized that, being a small organization, we have such little overhead. We had our partner at the venue was really wonderful and didn't require us to, continue a lease with them. We would just be in conversation. We could, gather again. And so we worked with filmmakers and distributors to start doing weekly theatrical releases. And so since March, we did pause in July. We've been each week releasing about 2 or so independent titles or programs that are in our virtual cinema. And we did that pretty quickly. We just kind of jumped on and started, seeing what was out there and curating, still being selective and making sure it's on mission. And it was pretty great. And so that was really cool kind of to adapt with the national conversation, as cinemas and distributors and filmmakers were kind of exploring what to do next. And so we did that. And then also in March, there's a lot of really incredible mutual aid fundraisers happening in our city. And so something that's been really important in our work has always been community partnerships. And so supporting movement building through local and regional and national and global grassroots organizing. And so we use film as a tool to connect people to that work, and think that film has an incredible tool to connect people to what's happening and to build empathy and tolerance and abolish hate. And, and so what we started doing was using a really cool platform, if you don't know about it, called Canopy, with a K, that all Philadelphia Free Library card holders have access to for free. You can screen 4 films per month. And so we started choosing films from there because we realized that while a lot of people have access to Hulu and Netflix and all of these things, that still for a lot of people, that $7, that $14 is still a barrier, per month to enjoy really great content. And Canopy is a free resource that our city offers. And so we started choosing films from there and from Netflix too, and hosted weekly watch parties, and in good faith asked our audience members to donate to the organizations who are helping us, co-present those films. And we created space before and after the film to unpack the conversations, sometimes on Zoom. We also did like the Netflix party extension and got to chat alongside these cool films. And it was just really good. But like Maggie, was talking about, it's very much an experiment. We're still in an experiment, trying to do what we love in the context of this weird new world we find ourselves in. So constantly adapting, constantly pivoting, seeing what works and what could be improved upon.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all learning in that. And I've hosted a watch party for my show, and it's a very interesting experience to kind of be alongside each other. I'm definitely one of those people who's loud in a film, and so to have the excuse of a chat, so like people can choose to look at it, and I could be as loud as I want, and it's okay. It's kind of like a new experience. I didn't think I would, find as exciting as I did, which, with kind of this adapting and kind of rethinking the way that we're showing this material or we're coming together as a community, were there things like that you all thought of that like that are new that you were like, I never would have implemented this, or I never would have thought that this would have happened, that just seemed to be like either really cool or just like something that you might want to implement later as well?
Well, I would say for us, we definitely want to continue doing virtual programming. One of the, key things here, you have 2 options, right? Between the half empty and the half full. And I'm a big proponent of the half full all the time. So it's what was the opportunity? And one of the opportunities that this brought was the chance for us to not have, be able to expand our base. Geography was no longer a restriction. It enabled us, not only us, but filmmakers. So that was a different offering for the filmmakers. It's not only your film is going to screen at the festival, it's now the screen is going to stream at the festival, and people, your base, your followers, your family, your friends can also watch and partake. So that was really cool to see. I don't know, a short being screen and the player has a chat box and somebody saying, that's my son, and I'm watching from Mexico, or I'm watching from Peru. Having that opportunity that a lot of filmmakers, where they're touring or, doing the first festival circuit, friends and family will plug via social media, but they're not sharing that together. The other part that for us was also critical was that all the programming was free, because we know the space that audiences and our communities are navigating. So we wanted to remove any barrier. You can watch from any device. It's just, just go to PHLAFF.org and log in and you're in. So that was critical. Now, when it comes to where do we go from here, we definitely know that virtual programming is something that we want to continue and incorporate into our practice and into our events moving forward.
Yeah, there's definitely more accessibility, like that's kind of come to the forefront of a lot of the media and things that I've seen, which is super exciting, because accessibility is something I'm definitely passionate about and always trying to see. And it's nice to know that those tools are there and have always been there, and now it's like, now we can all have them and we accept them. So it's, and also like making it free is super exciting too, because you could be targeting those audiences that otherwise had that barrier, didn't know, and now they're going to be like just as eager next year when they can come in person and do virtual. That's super awesome. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think to echo that, we also are thinking about virtual for the long haul. I think it's something that, I think art house cinemas have been booming and really building across the country and the world for a while now, even though Philly's had some screens close or, shift locations. So yeah, we also think the virtual is here to stay, and we intend to use it, particularly for that equitability and accessibility piece, which is really core to who we are and how we try to operate. A lot of our programming before this was even, a low, no, or sliding scale cost. And so that's important to us. And I think it's exciting to me, glass half full, to get to figure this stuff out amongst my colleagues. And yeah, I'm just excited to see the tools adapt to meet the programmers, the distributors, the filmmakers, and the audience needs.
And in our case, there was one more thing that we were able to pull. There's one film, our closing film, that based on the fact that that film had been acquired by Netflix, it was the only film that we were not in a position to do a virtual screening. And that obviously we were crushed. I'm not going to deny that, because it was Mucho, Mucho Amor, the Walter Mercado documentary, which we actually got to collaborate with CineSPEAK. So we had to think out of the box. We're like, because we were waiting for the city, checking the updates, and it's like, maybe we can do it outdoors. We can do, and I'm super thrilled about the driving thing that it's happening. That's a conversation that we have been having for a couple of years. I can say I'm old enough that I remember there was one driving in my town in the mid 80s when I was in high school. And it was part of what we did. We hung out Wednesday nights because one car could get into the driving for $5. So you will see everybody parking their cars and jumping into a car, and everybody's going in just to get to the driving and hang out that night. And I enjoy the concept. So I was like, there has to be an alternative. And it was, early May, that then Netflix was like, even if you can, we can't do it because it will be a liability. So we're like, what do we do? What do we do? So we ended up hosting a conversation with the filmmakers, with the co-directors and the producer, the week that it was released on Netflix. So that was that intimate experience where you get to ask the filmmakers. It wasn't the standard interview. It was more of a conversation with them about how the film had been received and their whole experience working with Walter. And that, people really enjoy that. And we had the opportunity to collaborate with CineSPEAK. So that was great as well.
Wow, it sounds awesome. And I agree with, what you're both saying, in that, that the virtual is here to stay. I don't think that we're going to be going back to any normalcy or what we had deemed as normal anytime soon. But I think there's a lot of silver linings to that. There's a lot of benefits, with the accessibility equity as well. And, in this time, there's a lot more that's going on, not just, the fact that there's a pandemic, but there's a lot of social issues and justice that we're targeting, especially here in Philadelphia. So I'm curious if, because you were also already focused on trying to transition the content, and Sarah, you already talked a little bit about this as well, involving the community, but did you feel that you were implementing things to kind of react to what's going on outside, or think of new like ways to engage our community so that, you know, we're getting that information out here?
So you see me laughing because we began our festival weekend, or actually our week of programming, with a master class that we collaborated with Scribe Video Center. And it was with the team from Decade of Fire. As you know, that's a documentary about the fires in the Bronx. And people were asking us, hey, did you realign your programming based on what's happening right now? This was hosted June 1st. So as we were doing the class, there were three things that I could hear out my window: the chants, the choppers, and the sirens. Because people were protesting outside. And they were like, did you realign your... No. No, that was already in our plan. We, talked about Afro-Latinx characters in sci-fi. Do you do that because of Black Lives Matter? No, because they have always mattered to us. And they're part of our mix, right? It's part of everything that we do. Again, is to connect to community, and always the internal compass for us is what are the burning issues that the community is dealing with: immigration, trans rights, etc., education, youth, you name it. So that's the reason you heard me and saw me laughing. It's like I got that question quite a few times after people looked at our lineup and they were like, that's so interesting. Do you realign everything? No.
Yeah, some of us didn't have
But we
to.
do.
Yeah,
No, of course. But it became very timely. And to be honest, there was, we were conflicted because internally, we're human and we're part of this community, and we hear all this stuff that it's happening and we see it, but it's like, these are your trenches, this is where you're doing the work. It's all connected. But do we pull out and say we're going to cancel the festival because no, we're going to create the space and we're going to keep it because media makers and community need this, and this is part of that work.
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful, and it's good to speak on that too, right? Like that many of these organizations and events were already out here, already kind of putting in that work, already doing it. And it's kind of nice that there's more people who are stopping and paying attention to it and looking at asking for it as well. And then you could say, like, here we are, we're over here, we've been here this whole time, and kind of gather more input from folks as well, which is...
You're always welcome to the party. You're always welcome to the party. I'm big on that. Join the party. It's okay. Coming in, we're here for you. Yep.
Yeah, and and CineSPEAK as well has had many pieces that are very much a part of the community and speak on those issues as well. Do you feel like you were highlighting some of those films or things to kind of as a reaction, or was it similar to Maggie as just being this is what we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Canopy series that I mentioned definitely was thinking about like who's raising money, what are the issues that are most important right now. But I think it's this whole thing with the movement is not a moment, and so I think for us, how we've positioned ourselves from the beginning is to be a partner. What does it mean to be a good partner to the communities that we serve and the communities that we are integrated with, that are part of our audience, that there is a way to do things well, and so I think it was really interesting to see this second emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement, and you see a lot of corporations and people jumping on this opportunity to kind of change their positioning, really say, oh, we've been about Black Lives Matter since the beginning. And then people then calling them out for, a lack of, Black representation within their staff, for example, or content on their, media platforms. And so I think, for us, this is constantly evolving, constantly growing, looking at who gets access, to produce programming within our organization at every level, who is involved and how do we involve community. And so that's not a thing that happens after the fact, but the communities are involved, our partners are involved from the top of the curation process. And we really haven't changed that since the beginning. And I think it's just, a lot of people are slow to adapt to that model. But my hope for arts and cultural programmers, particularly those who have more access and are more seen in the mainstream or just even in the forefront in Philadelphia, will take seriously the movement building that's happening and the calls for equity systemic reform, and make that a part of who they are the year round, and not just when the media has the spotlight on it.
Absolutely. And that there's joy
in
the work, right?
Yeah.
So
there's so much joy.
Absolutely. It is
cool
uphill. Absolutely. There's struggle, but there's joy in that.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of that on the simplest things that then you'll be like, and that's what community offers.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's funny. I took tennis lessons as like initially for like a very short period of time when I was in middle school. And I had this teacher who was like, you always got to be on the balls of your feet to be able to kind of constantly respond. You're not flat-footed, but you're positioned so that you can always respond to what is happening. And I think about that way in terms of how we grow as an organization, how we partner, how we program, is that, for a lot of people, it's a big haul to pivot really fast. And we're really small, so we can do that. But also, how do we do that as we're growing to what's next and next and next? And so, I'm just energized by the conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
yeah. And that's, we're getting a lot of balls being thrown. So there's a lot of like hitting them
everywhere,
and supporting each other as well, and collaborating where we can. And so, for lasting thoughts, do you have any, words of advice for organizations or events that are kind of pivoting to online content, also like, also talking about social justice and making this more than just a moment, right? And also where we can find more about your program.
Yeah,
I would say, keep it 100, be authentic, be yourself. Come and each one of us has a lot to offer, and there is definitely something to be said to embrace this work with an open heart and an open mind, and be flexible, and engage in communication, be open in terms of dialogue with your audience and those that you're collaborating with, and keep it funky. You're going to keep on growing that way. The worst thing that you can think is that you know it all, or that you know what you're doing. You're always learning as you go along. And in terms of where you can find more information about PHLAFF, you can visit our website, which I see that it's listed here. And you can also follow us on social, be it Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter.
Awesome. Excellent. And Sarah, where can we find CineSPEAK, and as also, words of advice?
Yeah, sure. I just want to echo that I think, it's so important that even when we switch to a virtual platform where it is seemingly more weird and disjointed and it can make you feel less human, is to try and find that joy in, continuing to build with your audience, continue to build with the people that you are talking to. That is about those relationships. Never take that for granted. Be a good partner, be good to your team, listen to yourself. There's no need to overproduce, although a lot of us feel that pressure, I think, in the working remotely and having seemingly more time. Just enjoy the work, center your joy, and that is resistance in of itself. And I think that'll be a healing balm for you and your community. If you just keep doing what you do, and do it well. And you can follow CineSPEAK. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at CineSPEAK. And you can see our website there, cinespeak.org. We are releasing independent new indie titles every single week. One thing we've been excited about is this month, we actually had an event with Latino Film Festival last week, and We Are the Seeds. We're doing a lot more live events, filmmaker conversations, filmmaker workshops coming up, guest programs. And so look for that. And you can sign up for our newsletter on our website just to stay in the loop and join the conversation. Let us know what you think. Hope to host you in person or online soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much for joining me on this small chat, but super informative. I think inspiring as well. I hope these events are going to get more exciting. And anyone who is hesitant to kind of jump off it and do that will see the success of the programs that you continue to create, and see the value in keeping our communities connected and engaged in the media. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll be seeing you online more.
I hope so. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And shout out to the PHLAFF family.
Yeah, PHLAFF.
PHLAFF rocks.
One of the greatest resources our city has, for sure.
And stay tuned. PHLAF's working on some virtual events too. So
Hey.
Yeah.
it's happening.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Very cool.